Unplug and reset, can we? A plea to liberty. Note, you don't have to abide by my views. This article explores how delicate it is to show up, perhaps disagree, and yet leave space for non-aggression, cultivating the emergence of dialogue. Quote, inside your bones lies the marrow, akin to the earth beneath your feet, a grounding essence that defines your home. This is paraphrased from Sarah Blondin's meditation. Aiming towards truth, liberty. Let me put it this way. If the ideologies or the science of ideas you hold dear haven't evolved in the past 3 years, brace for their potential crumbling. In 2024, perspective and wit will be crucial, along with the ability to differentiate signal from noise. Now's the time to take stock of your resources, talents, and goods. Without a plan B or C, this could be your last call. Current celestial alignments compel us to reevaluate our actions, self-perception, and thoughts, urging us to seek alternative views and directions to comprehend and integrate the events of recent years. Questions arise, prompting a contemplation on the archetypes of Jupiter's yearning for freedom to explore diverse cultures, philosophies, religions, and languages. Uranus' commitment to uniqueness and the collective need to explore concepts like liberty, property rights, and aggression, civilized behavior, and the factors differentiating us from animals during Jupiter and Uranus' most recent journey through Taurus. The last time was in 1941. Saturn and Jupiter shape and control social constructs, while Uranus ensures avenues for breaking free from conditioning and addressing generational trauma that hinders both individuals and humanity. The full moon on November 27th at 4th degree of Gemini, so phase 65 degrees, Gemini 5 degrees, brings us back to June 19th of 2023, when the Sun and the Moon initiated a new cycle at 27 degrees of Gemini. Reflect on the mental, ideological, or directional shifts in your life during this brief 5-month span. While only a short time has elapsed, consider the impact of Pluto's recent 3-month stint in Aquarius before retracing its steps to Capricorn. Come January 2024, Pluto will re-enter Aquarius, accelerating the trajectory into potential dystopian scenarios. As one who holds dear the doctrine of free will, as most libertarians, who value property rights and truth, in the spirit of the full moon in Gemini, we use reason and wisdom to increase our individual awareness for the greater good of our values and ideals. However, we must be cautious not to exert too much power, as it can be delusional. Let us conserve our energy and be mindful of who is ready to receive our care, trust, and cooperation with divine wisdom. In the grand scheme, the only certainty in life is change, a truth embodied in the transformative nature of death. What is your short, mid, and long-term plan? Can you trust your wisdom? Quote, phase 65, Gemini 5 degrees. A revolutionary magazine asking for action. The explosive tendency of repressed feelings and root emotions. Every movement overstressing one direction calls forth in time an equally extreme movement in the opposite direction. This is particularly true at the level of the dualistic mind symbolized in the zodiac by Gemini. What is rigidly bound in form and convention tends to explode into formlessness. It may also be violent if socially oppressed, through revolution, or at the psychological level in psychosis, or it may withdraw inwardly into the mystical state in which one identifies with an unformulatable reality. The fifth stage is related to the first, for it is the experience of a world of beings so far unperceived by the everyday consciousness, which starts the process. In the same sense, a psychedelic experience may momentarily make the mind transparent to a non-ego structure realm of consciousness and may lead to a sustained attempt at understanding what has been revealed of a transcended reality. Whether the revolutionary action is violent or peaceful, bitterly resentful or loving, The one desire is to reach beyond established forms. This is from the astrological mandala, The Cycle of Transformations, and its 360 symbolic phases from the root year. To reach beyond established forms. What to do? How to unplug? How do I verify? We can't trust the people who brought all the lies in the form of governmental information. And if we are codependent on them and the medical system, we might be in for a ride. Okay, perhaps it sounds all too crazy. Yes, maybe I'm going nuts. Who cares? If you trust yourself, you're in a great place. The spirit level is internal. In the meantime, a soundtrack for the article. Use headphones. So I'll leave you a piece of Andrew Bird called Motif. Then there's a note from my Substack. I'm going to read it. It's called Don't Trust, Verify. And it reads, use your inner authority to make your own decisions, whether it is through your instinctual primal body, your gut feeling, emotional wave, taking time for clarity, intuition, or self-reflection using placeholders according to your unique makeup. Personally, I don't give opinions. I prefer to deeply experience things, observe them, and study them, apply them to my day-to-day life. These decisions serve only me and are not meant to be repeated by others, for I am inspiring uniqueness, not influencing followers. When I speak up, I do so from a place of knowing and experimenting through periods of observation. Opinions exist in the realm of thought and are based on observations using logical circuitry. They recognize patterns which at times carry important information. However, for decision making, I still need to feel and sense using the lowermost primal parts of our bodies if one wants to survive. There is nothing wrong with having opinions. I'm just saying that when I offer information, it is through a process I have already implemented in my life. Thus, I don't trust, I verify. Social media experiment. Viva la libertad, carajo! Long live freedom, damn it! Embarking on a recent social media experiment brought early fears to the front. Some years ago, just the idea of being cancelled, left out, or mocked would have prevented me from doing such a thing, which seemed somehow reckless, a word used by a friend referring to my experiment. I have crossed to another timeline. At least it feels like this. It has not been something that just happened, but a slow progression towards what I could say will be the last third of my life. If I divide my life in two parts, from 0 to 19, from 30 to 55, with two transitional intervals between 20 and 29, and 55 and 59, that is where I am now. So, I orchestrated an experiment that played out quite effectively. I strategically placed a highly emblematic image on my social media feed, together by a caption that subtly related to the image but wasn't about the image itself. The caption encouraged viewers to take their time and acquaint themselves with what I'm really talking about before rushing to judgment. I made it clear that I was open to discussion. The caption called to delve into the realms of Bitcoin with the hashtag libertarianism and the hashtag Austrian economics. The post triggered a flood of emojis conveying disgust and anger, mostly vomiting, crying, and many what the fucks. The focal point of this experiment was an image of Javier Milei with his arms raised as a sign of triumph. He is the first anarcho-libertarian president elected by a nation in local elections. Such a nation is Argentina, whose inflation rates in the last 20 years had a whole generation leave to greener pastures. The Western world and legacy media deem him political as from the extreme right. The truth is that he aligns with the libertarian movement, a distinction often overlooked. Surprisingly, it seemed that hardly anyone actually read the caption, and the use of emojis left me puzzled. The responders were once part of my pre-pandemic network in New York, well-educated, in quotations, individuals with a strong inclination towards socialism and the left, and who once held or still hold positions of power in cultural institutions. They exuded righteousness, convinced of their sole possession of the truth. This experience unveiled the rift between how I see myself now and how the group of old acquaintances I thought were friends once see me now. These individuals left no room for curiosity or understanding. It became evident that this experiment was a crucial step for me. There was a lingering part of me that hadn't fully shown up or expressed my thoughts. Part of it was due to a lack of eloquence and education on certain matters that have become significant in my life in recent years. While I responded to a few questions, I couldn't help but laugh at that situation. It became clear that this was more about them than about me. I have no interest in engaging in futile exchanges when aggression takes precedence unless my life is in danger. Unfortunately, commencing from such a point of challenging as judgment is the driving force behind their interactions with me. I sensed a prevailing lack of knowledge, an abundance of ignorance, and an unsettling level of indoctrination. Yet, I'm genuinely eager for a dialectic discussion centered around dialogue at all times. I refuse to cater to those who blindly follow or act without substance. In the past 14 months or so, I've immersed myself in diverse education, expanding my perspective. And as I've begun raising my voice, a fresh wave of relational values has emerged. I leave the skeptics to conduct their own research, just as I have. As a side note, I feel that New York City served the purpose of being of utility. If you know someone who knows someone, 6 degrees of separation. Once you leave, your value goes back to null. While being there, it made sense at the time. The rat race is real. Thus, in order to survive, one has to be part of a pack. Now, from this perspective, I see other options that I have already embraced courageously. Quote, libertarianism fundamentally rejects aggression, simply put, respects others' property borders. The realm of property rights revolves around self-ownership of the body and adherence to principles like prior possession, homesteading, and consensual ownership transfer. This philosophy champions peaceful conduct and collaboration. Ludwig von Mises underscores that civilized individuals lean towards being considerate and resort to force only when absolutely necessary. Libertarianism seeks rules that are fair, universally applicable, and cultivate harmonious interactions. Libertarian property rights embody these principles. As an ecology, libertarianism is about establishing rules that support cooperation, happiness, and harmonious living. Some libertarians identify with anarchism due to their disapproval of the state employing aggressive tactics. My note from Chapter 5 on property of Seifedian's seminar, The Principle of Economics, as well as Stefan Kinsella's What Libertarianism Is. Recognition versus integrity. For the last 7 or 8 years, I've been meditating on when was the last time I gave all my power away to a city, to a couple of marriages, to ideologies that I never really questioned until I felt I was a phony. Integrity means wholeness. No part is missing. Everything coheres. Reputation is external, as well as recognition. It depends on social constructs. It takes away freedom and enslaves the mind to be attached to it in exchange for what gives one security. Could be financial, career-driven, social status, or just intellectual approval. It could be anything. I never really cared. In my case, it is more valuable to be free. As I approach 60, I've decided to lead a life 100% filled with authenticity, fearlessness, and complete disregard for the opinion of others, especially those who are not really interested in what I have to say or how I say it. This experience has motivated me to educate people about what it truly means to be a libertarian. My repertoire is repetitive, as it is constant with variations on the theme of freedom, such as accountability, sovereignty, and individuation. I have used metaphors and currents of thought, archetypal language, and as of late, I have been more direct to inspire you and others with such practical matters as Bitcoin, Jungian shadow work, human design, biogeometry, libertarianism, Austrian economics, and evolutionary astrology, just to name a few. As we stand on the precipice of the potent economic, social, and political shifts, I acknowledge that many might stay in the same frame of mind as they were pre-2020, and that is totally fine. But those who would like to keep curious, I feel compelled to take action and keep inspiring you to be free. I am not an influencer looking for likes, for I have zero power over you. Where do you stand in relationship to freedom, self-ownership, and individuation? Individuation is a psychological process of liberation from conditioning or from early trauma. In the physical realm, it is important to educate ourselves about what it is at stake when one loses one's liberties. What means delving into the idea of what is established as private property, self-ownership, and the distinction between these two. The fear of losing our own security often triggers reactions that others may find disagreeable, and I'm perfectly fine with that. The essence of this text is to celebrate my emancipation from certain belief systems that, not too long ago, shaped and defined my life. Quote, as Hans Hermann Hoppe observes, even in a paradise with a superabundance of goods, every person's physical body could still be a scarce resource, and thus the need for the establishment of property rules, example, rules regarding people's bodies, would exist. One is not used to thinking of one's own body in terms of a scarce good, but in imagining the most ideal situation one could ever hope for, the Garden of Eden, it becomes possible to realize that one's body is indeed the prototype of a scarce good for the use of which property rights, example, the rights of exclusive ownership, somehow have been established in order to avoid clashes. Hoppe, A Theory of Socialism and Capitalism, pages 8 to 9. See also Stefan Kinsella and Patrick Tinsley, Causation and Aggression, Quarterly Journal of Austrian Economics, 7, number 4, winter 2004. Where are discussing the use of other humans' bodies as means. End of quote. One part of the whole. Social constructs have been utilizing all kinds of mediums to slowly indoctrinate the masses through the program, which was set in motion long before, with the entire 20th century serving as a gradual indoctrination. Consider figures like Edward Bernays and his profound impact on the advertising industry, shaping the narrative not just through schools, TV, and movies, but infiltrating every aspect of our lives, including books. The repetition of information in various forms in our environment indeed molds our perception and becomes ingrained in our identity, reflecting the concept of epigenetics. One big mistake I made for a long time was to believe I was holding my truth in ideologies that I was impregnated in without knowing. I would question many things, but other times I looked the other way because this would mean I had to dive deeper and tell myself that I might be delusional. Studying about liberty in ways where I can be of service uniquely as a whole within the collective is my journey. In the meantime, I decided to finally run a node with the aim of validating the consensus rules governing transactions and blocks within the Bitcoin network. Nodes serve as the foundational elements of blockchain systems. Without them, there would be no blockchain storage in the first place. Collectively, nodes establish the entire infrastructure for a blockchain network, underscoring the significance of comprehending their functioning. Running a Bitcoin node allows me to take full sovereignty so that trust doesn't rely on a third party. At this point, my aim for liberty is impregnated with many practices that make me as coherent as I can be with space for excellence. There is a link to earlier article I wrote about programming and propaganda. So the link is there. Quote, the libertarian creed rests upon one central axiom, that no man or group of men may aggress against the person or property of anyone else. This may be called the non-aggression axiom. Aggression is defined as the initiation of the use or threat of physical violence against the person or property of anyone else. Aggression is therefore synonymous with invasion. If an action is performed that uninvitedly invades or changes the physical integrity of another person's body and puts his body to a use that is not to this very person's own liking, this action is called aggression. Next to the concept of action, the property is the most basic category of the social sciences. As a matter of fact, all other concepts to be introduced in this chapter, aggression, contract, Capitalism and socialism are definable in terms of property. Aggression being aggression against property, the contract being a non-aggressive relationship between property owners, socialism being an institutionalized policy of aggression against property, and capitalism being an institutionalized policy of the recognition of property and contractualism. Rothbard for New Liberty, page 23. See also Edom, The Ethics of Liberty. The fundamental axiom of the libertarian theory is that each person must be a self-owner and that no one has the right to interfere with such a self-ownership. Page 60. And what aggressive violence means is that one man invades the property of another without the victim's consent. The invasion may be against the man's property in his person, as in the case of bodily assault, or against his property in tangible goods, as in robbery or trespass. Stefan Kinsella, What Libertarianism Is. Now there's an image of a chart, astrological chart, and I'm going to read what it says. The famous words, "Give me liberty" or "Give me death," are credited to Patrick Henry, an American politician and orator, delivered during a speech to the Second Virginia Convention on March 23, 1775, at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. By examining the astrology charts of that historical date, it's in the inner circle, and November the 22nd of 2023, when Javier Milei was elected, we sense a familiar spirit of freedom. Both periods share similar positions in the zodiac: Pluto at the end of Capricorn, Uranus at the end of Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, and Chiron in Aries. Venus and Neptune find themselves in opposing signs. The current alignment places Saturn on the 7075 South Node, showcasing the rhythmic cycles of time governed by vibrations and creating harmonic or disharmonic ranges. This spans 248 years, equivalent to 20 Jovian cycles, almost 3 Uranian cycles, 1.5 Neptunian cycles, 13 nodal returns, 4.8 Chiron cycles, and 8.5 Saturnian cycles, a complete Pluto cycle. Then there's a video that is going to explain to you what is libertarianism with some graphics. I'm going to read the footnotes. So, the first one, it's defining ideology, with meaning systematic set of ideas, doctrines through which the world is interpreted, was used in English by 1907, earliest in socialist and communist writing with reference to class. From 1918, it came to be used for socialism and communism themselves, along with fascism, and later more broadly still. The current celestial positions are: Mercury ventured into Sagittarius on October 22nd, forming a square with Neptune in Pisces and applying in conjunct to Uranus. The Sun follows suit on November 22nd, and Mars joined the celestial dance on November 24th, creating a potent 90-degree square to Saturn in Pisces. Meanwhile, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, continues its retrograde journey until December 31st, 2023, stationed at 5 degrees Taurus. Venus in Libra is on a course to meet the South Node, forging a 150 angle to Uranus. All this cosmic activity sets the stage for the impending full moon in Gemini next Monday. Footnote number 3. In libertarianism, the principle of non-aggression forms the cornerstone, advocating that no individual or group should initiate or threaten physical force against another, promoting a society based on voluntary cooperation and respect for individual rights. And I'm going to read the Sabian symbol of the new moon back in June 19 that I was talking about. It's called Through Bankruptcy, Society Gives to an Overburdened Individual the Opportunity to Begin Again. A release from unbearable pressures, freeing one from new tasks. This symbol can easily be misinterpreted, for while it obviously has a connotation of failure, it nevertheless depicts a particular state of the complex relationship of an individual to his community. The bankruptcy proceedings mentioned here should not be construed as referring to a fraudulent type of bankruptcy. At least it is in the United States. Bankruptcy does not imply a moral condemnation. Rather, it means that the individual failure cannot be separated from the health of the community. The special nature of the whole is implied in the failure of the part to perform adequately under particularly harsh economic conditions. A society that enthrones the principle of ruthlessness competition must also develop mechanisms to exteriorize the principle of compassion. The latter was the first emphasized by Northern Buddhism as soon as after the Christianity. The concept of atonement is directly related to that of release from unbearable economic pressures in bankruptcy. This is the third stage in the Akin sequence of cyclic phases. In the first two stages, we have seen the emergence of a new consciousness. I'm not going to read this, it's not so important. Okay, I'm going to let it go. Basically, I'm saying hello, I'm saying goodbye. I hope you all had a great weekend, Thanksgiving, whatever. Happy full moon. And make a list of the stuff that you think you believe now and what you thought you believed before. And what would you like to believe in the next year or so? Have fun. Always have fun. Take good care. Bye-bye.